gonna go back over something that I mentioned in I think my last video about paraphilias and childhood sex addiction, which was like an hour plus long. And somewhere near the end of that, I talked about this one screenshot that I found in a comment section somewhere about somebody talking about how they're a quote-unquote minor. An insult term that you should never use against yourself, which is actually used to uphold legalities to keep you in abuse situations and to normalize your abuse and to say that you deserve it because you have to follow a quote-unquote grown-up say. Ageism doesn't stop till you're 40. And it definitely goes on till you're 30 or you're in your like mid-30s, but it really doesn't stop till you're 40. Especially for somebody who's escaped your abusive family system and now you're like on your own, especially if you're a street kid. If you're a street kid, you're gonna constantly be told about how there's somewhere you're supposed to be at that you're not at. Which goes into a video of its own that I plan to make about how people don't actually really talk about what happens after leaving or escaping abuse, whether it's running away or getting dumped out or getting kicked out. More so when I say dumped out, I mean the whole dumped out foster kid thing, which isn't even about aging out at 18 or at 21. It's about just the fact that when you're in foster care, you're probably going to be living outside multiple times before you're even 18 or 21. And a lot of times placement times run out or people get 21-day notice or whatever in the world. And they just get dumped out and they have to just sleep under a bridge or something at 13 or whatever age until they find another placement. People don't actually talk about how the same the same spirits that were in your abusers, those are the same spirits that are going to chase you the rest of your life. And like, it's not over until it's over, pretty much. But that's going to be its own video. Overall, the ageism doesn't stop. You're still going to be seen as a kid, especially until you're at least 30. And it's like, it's never for a good reason. It's never you're a kid so people should take care of you and help you out. It's you're a kid so you're a sex slave, emotional and physical punching bag. Which isn't really much different from the whole you're grown thing. Which, as I mentioned before, me and many other people in situations like me have been told the whole you're grown your whole life and you're just being childish ever since you were a toddler and stuff like that. But the whole you're grown thing is only ever really used to blame you as an excuse for kids to be thrown in prison or as a reason to sexually assault you. It's like, well, you're grown now, and once you start your period or the whole gang thing that some gangs have, especially with like certain Mexican ones, once you weigh more than 50 or either 80 pounds, you people can have sexual relations or sexual fiascos with you. It's pretty much the same, to be honest. The whole you're a child thing and the you're grown thing could be interchangeable in certain abuse situations. But anyways, they said the whole I'm a minor and I've been groomed and catfished online multiple times now, and it's like, I know people are going to feel that this is victim blaming, but it's like, people really have to have some accountability somehow, somewhere, because nobody's going to save you. You have to really see the patterns and learn to save yourself. If you stay in this whole, I don't know, I'm younger, or I'm just constantly getting assaulted thing, it's just, no one's ever going to come save you, and you're just going to stay in that cycle the rest of your life. And I've actually noticed, and I've mentioned this before in a video I made a year plus ago, when it comes to homeless women especially, you really can't trust them. Not because they're necessarily bad people, but because the people they hang around are not good people. And it's like, they'll tell people all your business and all their business. They'll tell people about how old you are, how old they think you are. They'll tell people about where your sleeping spots are. And a lot of people, when they're not the target or when they have no discernment, people really don't realize how predatory people can actually be. Wait a minute. How do I put this? It goes back to the whole there is no safe place for people with no family or abusive family thing. When people know that you're up for grabs and that nobody gives a crap about you and that if something was to happen to you, nobody would even notice or come looking for you, even realize you're gone, they become really predatory. And so homeless women and other people who are similar to this and are just like really gullible, or either they don't care because they're not the target, they're going to tell their friends and other random people all your business and stuff that may not even be true about you. That can be very risky. Like, for example, they may know somebody who knows of a lot of good spots. This person is very obviously a chomo and an R-worder. They've assaulted 2-year-olds sexually. But in other people's mind, well, they're a cool dude because I'm not the target. And so they're going to be like, well, yeah, you know, this kid over here, they're looking for a new camping spot. And of course, you never gave them permission to tell people that. I would never do that because I'm not stupid enough for that or desperate enough. Most people fall into these cycles forever and ever and never get out of it well until they're like elderly. But they'll be like, yeah, they need a spot. Then the person will come and they'll be like, oh, I know a good spot right beside me. And it's like, come on now. And it's like, I really just don't get it. It's like, I'm really not trying to be rude, but it's like people are so ignorant, and it's like it's really concerning to me how dumbed down people actually are. It's like, literally, really? And it's so scary to me, not because I'm scared of anybody, but it's scary to me because people try this because it's worked on so many other people, and they're like, well, this is going to be my new person to sleep with every time I come home from work and I'm bored or whatever in the world. And it's like, what in the world? And it's like, yeah, so what point was I getting at? I don't even know, but I mentioned this before. It's like, it's not even always that somebody's necessarily unsafe themselves, although they definitely are half safe. But the people that they hang around and call their friends are very unsafe. In fact, I had a Let Me Help You lunatic pull something like this once, where they tried to tell me about how I needed a quote-unquote safe spot. And then they were like, yeah, this dude said you can sleep right beside him. And it's like, and I was like, I'm not stupid enough for this bullcrap you guys are pulling. And of course, the Let Me Help You lunatic lady didn't even know this random dude. And this other guy was like, he just got beat up, and he's about to get beat up again because he just assaulted these 2 teenage girls. And supposedly they slept with him, or quote-unquote slept with him, for some drugs, but I don't even think they were homeless, to be honest. And I wasn't about to go for that anyways, but it's like, that's how people are, though, and it's really crazy. But it's like, the next point I was supposed to be getting at is that I noticed that a lot of the people who are like this have perpetual victim R-word stories, where they also commonly like to project things on me, and they'll be like, yeah, it's going to happen to you too because, you know, you're young and you just don't understand the risk out here. But of course there's always risk. Really anything could happen. You definitely can't just have somebody walk up to you and throw you in a car, but it's like, a lot of people's stories aren't like that. A lot of people's stories are, oh, well, he said he was going to let me get in his car and smoke with him, and then I was horribly taken advantage of, and then he assaulted me, and then I got in his car again the next week, and he assaulted me again, then I got in his car the next week, and he assaulted me again. I also should add in, this whole fear-mongering adultism rhetoric is also used to trap people, younger people, in trafficking and abuse situations with relatives. People say this whole, you don't understand what's out there, kind of like I talked about in the whole coroner's message reaction video, as if the reason that the person is out there isn't because of how bad the world is. It's kind of like the people that'll tell you nobody gives a crap about you and nobody's going to take care of you, survive on the kindness of others, as if you don't already know that. If you, literally, people that are out here already know that, and that's why they're out here. People like to tell people stuff that they already know to try to fearmonger them back into a known bad situation that's honestly worse. Like, for example, obviously somebody who is getting trafficked and essayed by their own relatives and parents knows that the world isn't a safe place. That's literally the first thing most people learn from inside the house. But the reason that somebody would run an amour essay with some other random person out in the streets, or even if they never leave their abusive family system, they're still living with them, isn't because they quote-unquote don't understand the risks in the world because they're quote-unquote a child and they're stupid or something. It's because they're used to abuse, so they're just going to fall into more abuse, or they're addicted to it, or they have sex addiction, which the sex addiction is kind of different from just being addicted to abuse in general. And it's like, I get that bad things can happen, but a lot of people's stories that they tell, whether they know it or not, are their fault. I'm sorry, but it is their fault. And I've mentioned this before, even in my video from like last February maybe or November. It was titled, "Are you sticking beads up your nose and expecting different results?" There's a funny backstory with that. But anywho, in that video I talk about how some people will be like, "Oh, you just don't want to forgive and forget, and you don't like your parents or your family, or you don't like whoever, and you just don't want to do what you're quote-unquote supposed to do because you like your bad situation." Which the people that say stuff like that are predatory themselves. They don't even have to be sexual predators. They could just be like, "Let me help you lunatics." But anyhow, the reality isn't that they're quote-unquote forgiven and doing what they're supposed to do. The reality is that they're codependent and they're manipulative on accident with their codependency. They don't see themselves being able to take care of themselves, and so they depend on their abusers and other abusive people for a place to stay and financial support because they don't want to be alone. They can't handle being alone. They're desperate and lonely. They don't want to do what it takes to really be able to take care of themselves without having to be abused and taken advantage of, quote unquote, every other day. And something that I learned a long time ago from my own issues with limerence. And limerence is idolatry, but it's another term too. Favorite persons, BPD type stuff. Not like high level where you get to almost being a schizonarch, but I guess more so the side that really leans into sexual perversion and that type of demonization, and also attachment issues from not having parents to attach to, which is part of why at 14 I finally made the decision to just block everybody because I was talking to a whole bunch of people who were limerence obsessions and didn't like me anyways, and I needed to focus on my own issues instead of being unpaid therapist for other people. What was I saying? You're manipulative on accident. I think that's what I was getting at. You're trying to like use other people even if unknowingly, but really, you're not good at being manipulative on accident, and you always get the bad end of the stick. And that's what a lot of people are like. And I've noticed this more and more, especially with this recent situation with this elderly lady, but I have been realized it, but it's like her story is a very good example of it, like her whole life story. And while I don't like when people are victim blaming and make up excuses to not help other people, I've started to understand more and more different things, like why rich people only hang around other rich people and why they don't just run around giving out money to people. Well, I'm not talking about like serpentine people that are born into like bloodlines, but like people who actually like did make their money on their own. They know that other people should do the work too to get where they got. And I'm not really into materialism, but I just think it's a good example for this. They don't want to give handouts to people who won't do the work to get where they got. I mentioned something like this before in a video about a post I seen on Reddit, and it said, "Has being homeless hardened anybody else and made you not give a crap about other people's issues and not want to hear about their problems?" And for me personally, I haven't gotten like that, but being willing to run and save myself and save my own life from my bad situation, accepting that there is no help and nobody's going to save anybody, helped me to realize like different people's situations and how some people or a lot of people are too scared to like escape their abuse. And I'm not going to lie, everything won't work for everybody. You definitely have to go about things different ways, but like one good example is that one girl who I tried to help for years, and I had over $300+ put to the side for her and a whole bunch of stuff. A long story with her being sex trafficked by CPS. And stuff like that made me realize even more, like, people have to be willing to save themselves pretty much. Not everybody really is willing to get out. In fact, I even have a couple of videos about this person. Their situation just got worse and worse. And while they wouldn't run with me, even though I had came to the state they lived in and even got stuck there for 2 weeks behind trying to help them, they were the usual person who wouldn't even meet me halfway, none of that. But then they ended up leaving with some random foster sibling who didn't even like them, which of course got absolutely nowhere, and they just got caught, locked up, and eventually sent back. That's the same thing that a lot of people constantly fall into. You won't do what you really need to do because you're too scared to really do it. So instead you do something that you know isn't going to work out, that's going to lead back to the same bullcrap. I have realized a lot in the past few years, especially since running, what people mean when they say a lot of people have a lot of excuses. And I know, according to a lot of people, I mean, I may be the person that, quote unquote, is a victim and has a lot of excuses. But in my mind, I'm not about to let anybody victimize me for me to even be running around saying I'm a victim. But I'm not even going to get into that. But I get that, like, when you're just in certain situations, people automatically have this idea of you that, oh, you just don't want to get help or whatever in the world. But that's why I'm always going to say living outside isn't the bad thing. The bad thing is letting people do whatever they want to do to you. The bad thing is not realizing that nobody's going to save you and that you have to save yourself, which, to be honest, most people are out here because to a certain extent they realized that they had to save themselves, they had to escape a situation, or they were just dumped out at 8 or 12 or 13 or whatever. But what was I going to say? Oh yeah, and also the fact that when you're homeless or when you're like in any position that's being on the bottom of the caste system and falls under being quote unquote bad, crazy, or retarded, people see you as something to just like talk junk about and use as a punching bag. So you're going to be treated like crap by people in society, just random people, because you're the quote unquote bad guy because you're homeless or whatever in the world. But still, I'm not about to let anybody like really do anything to me for me to be running around saying I'm a victim. I don't even have time for that. And that kind of goes into the fact that a lot of people are so addicted to abuse and these abuse cycles and chasing chomos to where they're like a perpetual victim. And I know a lot of people aren't going to like it, but no matter how young you are, you really got to like understand this. This is why I make these videos, regardless of what people think I make these videos for. Because nobody's going to save you, and you have to realize how to not fall into the cycle and eventually become a schizonarc or a full-blown schizo, because you've been with so many different people sexually, you have so many different people's personalities in you, so many different people's DNA running through your blood and all that stuff, to where you're all over the place because you've been with 3,000 different people and all types of stuff since you were, I don't know, 10. And I mean, yeah, people are still perpetrators, and I know people are going to definitely feel some type of way about this and feel it's victim blaming. But the thing is, let's be real. If somebody is being, well, I won't say being essay, because that means that there's like a lot of like other stuff with it. I'm talking about more stuff that you have control over. I'm not talking about, I don't know, like your mom or dad or something, and if you defend yourself, you're the bad guy, you're going to prison for the rest of your life. Or if you run, you could go to jail, which is also why I still had the playlist about how to run. But everybody's situation is different and everything isn't going to work for everybody. But still, I'm talking about like actually going off on Tinder and running off of random people secretly, sneaking out the house with different chomos. I get that the reason that you do that is because you're already being essayed and already have been essayed, but like I always say, as an example, if you have abusive relatives or abusive parents or a guardian, and they're always beating you up, and then you go out and you get an abusive friend who's always manipulating you and beating you up, you're getting beat up a little bit too much. You gotta pick your battles. You're either gonna get beat up and choked and strangled and stabbed by your mom, or you're gonna get beat up and choked and strangled and stabbed by your friends too. Your quote-unquote friends. That's too much, getting beat up, choked, and stabbed. You gotta like leverage. If leverage is even the word for that, probably not. And that's one of the things that really hit me in the head when I blocked everybody those years. I was like, okay, wait a minute, hold up, wait a minute, hold up, wait a minute, hold up. If I'm gonna get talked junk to and manipulated and gaslit by my abusers that I have to be around, why in the world am I gonna let these random people that I don't have to deal with come into my life and do the same bull crap? But I definitely missed something. Now, there was something I was supposed to say, but then I went off into a whole nother sentence, as usual. I think, wait a minute. I don't even know. I hate this. I always do this. I think the unfortunate thing is that some people, when your mind works too fast, you just mess up and screw up and stutter and you forget so much stuff. Things just come out so drifty, but I totally forgot a lot of stuff that was like the main point. But I'm going to keep circling back around anyways, as usual, so it's not going to matter. Okay, so, back to the minor thing. I talk about this so often, especially in the past couple months. The minor term is an insult. It also goes into this whole minor craze that people are having now, which I have a whole video about, titled Epstein something, don't know what else. I just know Epstein's in the title. And that the thumbnail is AI Donald Trump, a skeleton of Epstein, because for whatever reason that's what popped up when I typed in Epstein, a skeleton. I guess that's because the narrative that they're trying to push, that he's not running around Northeast Africa with the other Swedish, Irish, German, Brit, French, etc. people who are claiming to be a people that they aren't. But oh well. And then there's the island, and I don't remember what the background is. But yeah, so that video. I talk about how in recent times people are all of a sudden freaking out talking about how we care about minors. And it's like, what in the world? So much is wrong with that rhetoric, to be honest. Which I go over in that video. Aside from the fact that the minor term is very discriminatory and adultist, and it actually has nothing to do with age of consent laws, to be honest. Like, the 18 thing is about, okay, now we may possibly let you get a job and not tell you that you're still too young to work here. We may possibly let you get a car. We may possibly let you rent a place. We may possibly let you run away and leave your abuse situation without trying to lure you back and tell you that you're a child and you need to go back home. Possibly. We may possibly not do that. That's what the 18 law means. It's really about the age where you're supposed to possibly maybe somehow be able to leave and like maybe get a job and do your own thing and like enroll yourself for college. Still not high school because you still need a parent for that. Because if you're 18 plus and you want to like go to school because you haven't gotten to because your abusers wouldn't let you, then we're going to tell you, oh well, we don't really want you in the school district because for one, you're a high dropout rate or you're like an ethnicity that we don't want around. But since you don't have parents with you, we're going to play games with you because we know you're younger and we can. And it's just a lot of stuff with that, to make a long story short. You can enroll yourself in college. That's the moral of the story. That's what you can do. Be proud and be happy and take what you can get. 18 has nothing to do with age of consent laws. Not really. It's really about something else. Also, age of consent laws, as I always say, don't even mean what people think they really mean. It's more about getting younger people locked up and put on the registry for getting with other people their own age. That's what age of consent is actually about. It's not about, like, locking up predators. If you have nobody who really gives a crap about you, who's, like, way older than you, to actually take predatory people to court, nothing's gonna happen anyways. And even still then, nothing may happen. But, like, for example, I don't know, you're 17 or whatever, which, I mean, that's legal, so maybe I gotta go younger than that. You're 12, some random dude comes and assaults you and gets you pregnant, and it happens at, like, I don't know, a park bathroom, which there actually is situations that have happened like this by guys to boys in recent times. But anywho, that happens, but you don't have parents or your parents are abusive or neglectful and they don't give a crap about you. Nothing's gonna happen because you can't take them to court. So that's whatever. And now you're pregnant and now you're getting beat up for being pregnant because you got assaulted. Or you're a boy and now it's just, I don't know, you can't get pregnant, but it's just whatever. So it's like, and then it's like also when you get full-blown R-worded, age of consent shouldn't even come into question because there was no consent anyway. And it's like, this is why people have the idea that, okay, so now you're 16 or you're 18 or you're 21 or whatever, now I'm going to R-word you while you're walking down the street, and I'm not going to go to jail because you're legal, because you're 16 plus, or you're 15 plus. And then when they openly admit that, like, all this stuff is legal, people are going to be like, well, now you're 12. Like how people from America, they move to Asia or different Asian countries, they get dual citizenship to go to these different Asian countries to sleep with 12-year-olds. I actually know a girl who's been in this cycle of chasing chomos, who actually has met a couple of American guys, rich white dudes, that do this. They get dual citizenship or they straight up move to some Asian country to get with 12-year-olds. And this can go back to the whole minor craze. So it's like, okay, so since you're in the minor craze, are you going to be like, oh my gosh, you can't sleep with people under 12, just sleep with 12-year-olds and do the right thing. Follow the laws, guys. It's actually really funny, though. It's really funny how backwards and weird people are with all these different European philosophies that revolve around atheism and quote-unquote morals, which can change by the day and the second, instead of just following the laws of the Creator. Since people are just, it's just all bullcrap. It's all bullcrap. People are just really, really weird. And we can all admit that since the beginning of time, really, things have been distorted because a lot of laws were made to, like, bow down or kneel to men and their desires and them having no self-control and, like, what they can and can't handle. So, even with all the laws that were put in place, from Noah to Enoch, Abraham, Most people know about the Moses ones. People are still doing whatever to younger people and doing whatever to women and doing whatever to whoever because people are people. Unfortunately, people didn't really want to keep the laws of the Creator anyways, which is why, like, you were originally only supposed to have one wife and one husband, but people went into polygamy and all those different things because people made the laws to kneel to their desires, but that wasn't the original design. So yeah. Okay, so another thing, going back to the whole minor thing, which this is like going to be the main point. I probably should have said this in the beginning before I kept getting lost with what I was talking about. I mentioned this before in that last paraphilia video, whatever it was titled. The idea that because somebody's a quote-unquote minor or somebody's younger, that they necessarily don't know what they're doing. And I know people are going to say that's the same rhetoric that chomos use. And that's because really with all lies, there's a little bit of the truth sprinkled in there. Or at least with every good lie, the truth is sprinkled in there. That's why they'll also talk about the laws and what's actually legal and what's actually not legal. Because, I mean, they're not wrong when it comes to, like, the bullcrap legalities that mean nothing. But it's like, I mean, the ritual of S.A. will always be wrong. And the ritual sleeping around will also always be wrong, but it's still like if you want to really not fall into these cycles, you have to think for yourself. You can't do the whole, well, I'm just young and I'm just I don't know, whatever in the world people say. It doesn't matter because if you say that, you're always going to be in these bad situations and you're going to be the person who's constantly on Tinder running after chomos because you're being neglected. And you refuse to find any other better coping mechanisms, and then you run off on Tinder, and then also the demonic side is a big part of it, because, like, demons lure you into this, because, one, you gain the different paraphilias. On both sides there's paraphilias. The person chasing the older people has paraphilias, and the person chasing the younger people has paraphilias. It's a double-sided thing, regardless of what people want to say about it. And then with the demonic arousal, the demons will make you feel really, really aroused on both sides of both people. And make you feel like you really want something that you really don't want. To get you to, like, fall into the ritual. To screw you up more and more over time. And they're going to make you feel like you want this. In fact, like with the R-word fetishes, as people now call it, wanting to get assaulted, the predatory and lust and perversion spirits will make you feel like this from a young age. Even if you haven't actually been assaulted already, they make you feel like you want to be assaulted, or like you want to, like, get with older people, and you'll have these, like, quote-unquote role-play issues as this one boy, well, actually, this is what people call it, but I knew this one boy who was, like, really into that, since he was, like, 10 or whatever, because of early sexual exposure and neglect, and, of course, he's one of the people that is now a you females boy, because, one, his mom was very abusive, and she was a narc and Jezebelic, especially since he's still being neglected since his mom passed from OD and he's 17 and he's pretty much been homeless since 14 or maybe 12 when she died. Can't really remember. And 2, he's been running around sleeping with people since he was 8 or 10, and of course that sets you up to have a lot of issues from heartbreak and having too many different soul ties. And so anyways, you have these paraphilias, and so you seek out this stuff because really you get assaulted by the demon before you ever get assaulted by an actual person. That's actually the summary. The demon assaults you before an actual person or / human agent assaults you. They set you up to want to chase after it with the human agents, which are Marine Kingdom agents. You feel like you want it, so you look for somebody who's willing to do whatever with you. And then afterwards you realize that you really didn't want it, or during it you realize that you really didn't want it. Especially if something happens that you didn't agree to during the whole ritualistic scenario. It reminds me of this comment that I once seen that I really didn't like and still really don't like because it is very victim blaming, but I get the point though. They were like, kids need to leave adults alone and adults need to leave kids alone, and it is realistic. But the unfortunate thing is that on both ends, most people don't actually really understand what they're taking part in. Just like when it comes to the fornication rituals, people just think that they're just dating. And also some prostitution that revolves around dating too, as I always mention. Western culture and the whole dating thing is prostitution. It's individualistic. It's very objectifying. It's very usy. It's about like looks and who has what amount of money, who can give me a place to stay, who has a 19-inch, even though that's not normal. They're probably like a Nephilim or something. That's what it's about. And also, that would hurt very, very badly. Like, anywho, let me just get back to the point. But yeah, this is definitely going to be all over the place. I'm trying to remember what point I was last getting at. I think the point was that this is, oh yeah, people act like somebody's just like falling into these situations because they're stupid or something. Now, of course, I can't speak for everybody. I can speak for people that I've known who are in these situations or have been. They're not stupid people. They're not like, people act like, oh, they're just 14 and they really didn't understand and all that. It's not about that. They're being neglected and they're already being essayed or already have been essayed. So they're addicted to abuse. They already have the paraphilia spirits that make them attracted to these types of things. They have sex addiction. So they want to do this because people don't understand the ritual that it is. And if you tell people the ritual it is and how it's going to affect them, they'll be like, oh, you're just schizo, you're just crazy, and I'm going to get me a 45-year-old. But anyhow. They're chasing this because they're in the cycle of sex addiction, to make a long story short. And they want somebody to, like, pay attention to them and take care of them. And they don't have any other options because, as I always talk about, with the whole let me help you lunatic thing and the sexual predator, people who are actually financially stable and mentally stable, quote unquote, and are healthy, quote unquote, and are safe, quote unquote, don't like to help people. So the people left to help people are let me help you lunatics. As I always say, I talk about or made videos about the Billy and Daisy situation. Daisy from Santa Monica Close-Up, who's also on Soft White Underbelly, is a very good example of a certain type of a let me help you lunatic, as I call them. They're definitely called to help people, but they are not in the state to be helping people. Some of them really don't want to. They're just doing it to look good or make themselves feel better. Especially if they're religious. They may just be doing it because they feel like the whole do what thou wilt / the good deeds outweigh the bad deeds thing is true. So they're just doing good things to like try to work their way into heaven. And they're never going to do anything to really actually help you. They're never going to do what you really need. Then as far as the sexual predators that I mention pretty often, people who are even still living with abusers will get with sexual predators who are willing to feed them, take them to school, enroll them in school, pick them up from school, pay for their lunch, which I guess is about to be a thing again soon, if school even still exists. Let them stay at their house when their parents kick them out at 10, stuff like that. People who are actually safe don't care to help people. So these are the people left to quote-unquote help people, which is why people fall into these cycles with these people, or it's one of the reasons. Another thing, with the false NWO of religion, people have been trained to believe from birth that people who love you, beat you, choke you, hit you, they scream at you, stuff like that. This is the number one reason why people fall into domestic violence in the first place. You're trained up to believe that people who hit you love you, to make a long story short. You're trained to, like, be in this cycle of, okay, they're beating me up and choking me because I did something bad, because I spilled some milk, or because I stayed out too late, or whatever in the world, or because I made a bee. So this is just what happens, because this is what happens to kids, or this is what happens to people. This is what your parents are supposed to do. This is what people do that love you. And when you fall into this cognitive dissonance cycle and you think that corporal punishment is a good thing, you're constantly going to be in domestic violence situations. I'm not going to lie to you. You are. You're going to be the perpetual victim who's always in the ER, always has your eyeball getting punched out. You got to go to the ER to get it put back in. Apparently this is possible. Some lady that my dad knew said that like her ex had did that to her, and I guess it's possible. I never really researched that, but she says it happened, so I don't know, but if so, that's horrible. But this is what people are trying to believe is okay. But yeah, so you fall into this cycle where you're used to the whole love bombing, gift bombing, discard phase. Dr. Romney talks about these things with quote-unquote narcissism, or the Jezebel Leviathan and other spirits, but this is everywhere. It's not even in just quote-unquote narcs, or what I like to call schizo narcs. This is everywhere. And people are raised in this. Like, for example, in the video I made about what I like to call Sixth Commandment culture. One of the screenshots I used in the beginning is from a video where a dude talks about how he used to sleep with a knife under his pillow because his dad would abuse and torture him physically for quote-unquote punishments. And so he wanted to unalive him, which luckily he didn't because he would have went to jail. But if he would have did it, I don't care what people say. It wouldn't have been the wrong thing to do because it would have been self-defense. So people are so brainwashed and wishy-washy with this flipped around moral stuff that people believe. And it's like the same morals that were used, they're the same flipped around gospel that was used to for slavery, to say we believe in the gospel and we're going to have you as slaves and we're going to take you and your kids through Virgo Vasal sodomy rituals. But if you defend yourself from a parent or some guardian or even a random person walking down the street who's holding a knife to your throat, you're a criminal. Okay, I don't give a crap about any of that bullcrap that people push. Point is, you're in this cycle where like you're getting beat on and tortured and choked, and then after a while you're told to just forget about it. And then after a while you feel better and then you forgive your abuser, which is the parent or guardian or whoever is over you, kidnapper, whatever in the world. It's Stockholm Syndrome and cognitive dissonance. But you get taught to get used to it pretty much. You get taught, okay, I'm mad now and I want to defend myself or escape. And then after a couple hours, you feel better, and then you're like, okay, and then the abuser, which actually, this is a very common thing that's talked about by comedians, with Jezebelic black women especially. Like, there's so many videos out there about people talking about how, quote-unquote, black moms apologize by saying, you want to go to the store with me? So, like, they torture you and strangle you for some hours or beat you up, and then hours later, they're like, okay, you want to go to the store with me? That's not an apology. That's insanity. That's a double-minded cycle. And then when you're one of the people that knows your self-worth and actually gives a crap about yourself, you're the bad guy. You're quote-unquote the bad, grown, fast child, as people call me on a daily basis. Because you don't have time for people's insanity and bullcrap and trying the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. But that's what this is, though. Or like the Whoopins or the New World Order video. That one screenshot from that lady's post where she was talking about her dad chased her down the street butt naked. Well, not butt naked, but in his fruity balloons. With holes in the back, quote unquote. Because she was, she had a boyfriend. And then he, like, dragged her into the house and the boyfriend drove off really fast. And then he was, like, beating her up and stuff with, a stick that he kept under the couch. Which is very interesting. And she was like, I wanted to unalive him. And then she was like, but nah, because I'm a daddy's girl and I forgave him. This is a cycle that you're taught to be in. This is why people have so many kids. This is one reason why. Especially these messed up people, 40 plus, who are under these different types of trauma-based mind control that destroy lots of people. These people 40 plus that are very well known for the baby mama, baby daddy drama. They get in these relationships, they beat on each other, they choke each other, they beat on each other's kids. Then they're like, you know what? Okay, this isn't working. Let me try to find another parent and somebody else who's not going to beat on me. They beat on each other again. The cycle just keeps going and going and going. It just keeps going. That's pretty much what it is. And so, okay, what was I talking about? Why did I start talking about this? Oh my gosh. Okay, I remember now. I always do this. Dang it. The cycle of abuse. People are taught, let somebody torture you, because it's all you're going to get, because you deserve it, because it's the right thing to do, because it's punishment. Forgive them, it happens again, forgive them, it happens again, forgive them, it happens again, forgive them. The world is a cycle. The universe is a cycle. It's not just the moon cycles, it's not just the menstrual cycle, it's not just the butterfly cycle, it's not just nigger synthesis as they talk about in the Boondocks. It's more cycles than that everybody's stuck in and we're revolving around, and then it's like planets. Not that I really believe like the flipped around newer versions of like how the universe works stuff and what cycles and rotates around what, but that's what it all is. People are taught to be addicted to abuse. And so when it comes to a lot of the chomo chasing stuff, it's a cycle. From the paraphilias and the actual attraction and the demonic arousal and wanting it or being made to feel like you want it, because you and the other person are both in a state of hyper arousal from the demonization from the marine spirits, where you both feel like you really want it, but then after that, the older person feels guilty. The younger person's having flashbacks and is shaken, and the aftermath of the ritual happens, and now you're more messed up. But then you're made to feel like you want it again, and then it just keeps going because it's sex addiction on both sides. I know people are gonna feel offended by that, but this is how paraphilias really work, and paraphilias start in childhood. You don't become, I don't know, 16 or 18 or, I don't know, 35, and then you're like, yeah, this is what I want, this is what I like. It's something that's very, very much ignored because typically the person has an abusive family system where their behavior, whether it's chasing chomos or being a predator, is ignored. And often taught or promoted because the parents have the same issues and they want the kids to be like that. Just like how with sibling sexual abuse, the parents allow it to happen. And this kind of goes into the whole dronophile thing I talk about as well, where like some people are like, well, I don't want to be a perpetrator, so instead of dating people my age, which is quote unquote being a chomo, because younger people are made to feel like it's a crime to get with people their age, you feel like you got to get with older people who are way too old to not be a perpetrator yourself. So you're made to feel like if you're not the victim, you're the bad guy, which is the same thing with the whole Sixth Commandment culture thing. If you're not getting beat on and having people trying to unalive you, if you defend yourself, you're the bad guy. If you're not being the victim, you're the bad guy. Because this is what people have been taught, at least unknowingly. But since people aren't taught to think for themselves, people just don't really know what's going on around them. And it's like another thing with it too, which goes back to this comment that I mentioned in that last paraphilia video, where somebody was like, you gotta watch out for these lesbians because some of them are 304s on the low. Which I don't even really like that term, but it was a comment under a video about how this girl found out that her quote-unquote dyke friend was sleeping with her dad, which honestly that says a lot about why the girl became the quote-unquote dyke persona, But this makes you think about another side to these paraphilias. The girls that identify as lesbians, but they only ever have sexual relationships, which they shouldn't be having anyways, but they only have them with older boys or straight up chomos. So like the 11-year-old girl who claims she's a lesbian but gets with 15-year-old boys and stuff for grown chomos. But there's also another side to these paraphilias, which I could even speak on with myself, with something I noticed, which is very deeply rooted in like psychological stuff with parent issues. But another example that kind of goes along with that. So this one girl obviously got essayed, claimed she was a quote-unquote lesbian, as they all do, but now she has a baby. So it's like, what in the world? Why do all these lesbians have babies? But anywho, claimed she was a lesbian. When she was 17, she got with this other essayed and neglected and abused boy who also had early sexual exposure and a Jezebelic mom. Actually, the same one I mentioned earlier. The one that had been having different sexual fiascos since 8, but I guess maybe more so 10. He was, I think, 12 or 13 at the time. The demonic sexual arousal happened from the marine spirits, and they both ended up quote-unquote sleeping with each other when he was about 13 and she was 17. And I know a lot of people feel some type of way about this. I mean, it's definitely not good at all whatsoever. Definitely not the right thing to do. But I can definitely say that so many people are raised to just like, in this whatever goes mindset. People don't even really think about how not okay certain things are, especially when like both people have been essayed, so people see nothing wrong with a lot of stuff, and like, it's whatever, we're just dating or whatever in the world. And yeah, so that was it. But this is somebody that claims that they're a lesbian, quote unquote, but they chase after, no, this is different from the other girl who was always sleeping with the older boys, but also that's like a common scenario with quote unquote lesbians. But like, I just gotta like make it clear these are different people. Forgot what I was about to say. Oh yeah, I was gonna say that like, then eventually she got pregnant by some older boy. And this is how the cycle goes. People will like sometimes drift back and forth from being the victim to the chomo. Victim to chomo, victim to chomo. So like, okay, so I'm 11, I'm gonna get with a 15-year-old. I'm 15, I'm gonna get with an 11-year-old. Okay, never mind. I feel guilty about that, or I now know that was wrong, so now I'm 19, I'm going to get with a 35-year-old, so I'm not the bad guy. It kind of reminds me of something that somebody was mentioning in this video that some girl had shared, some girl that's a street kid as well. In the video, the dude was talking about how sexuality is fluid because it's really about spirits and trauma. So it's like, okay, 1 minute, oh yeah, like the molested kids that are like 1 minute they're bisexual, but then they're straight, but then they're bisexual. So one day they have their the pride flag in their Instagram bio, but then they're like, okay, never mind, guys, and then it's back. It's not funny, but it's very interesting. But yeah, so anywho, people aren't getting lured into things because they're quote unquote stupid or they're young and dumb, which is actually very victim blaming as well, because it goes along with the whole idea that, oh, if you run away, you're gonna get R-word and somebody's gonna shove a shotgun up you. The crazy bullcrap that people say to me to try to like victim blame me, but also to fearmonger me about not allowing myself to be in bad situations. So they want to like try to make me feel like I'm the bad guy and it's gonna be my fault if anything happens because I'm not quote unquote where I'm supposed to be at. People will be like, yeah, when somebody sticks a broom up you, it's gonna be your fault because you're being grown and you just don't understand because people think they know everything when they're young. People say that. Do people actually think that? Maybe I'm not the usual person. Maybe my younger siblings aren't either, but I've never, who actually thinks they know everything? But people say that, like, when you're young and when you're a quote-unquote kid, you think you know everything. Like, who? It seems like most people never learn what they really should learn. They never know what they really should know. They stay in these weird mindsets where they're forever a baby mama and a baby daddy, and they have 3,000 kids by the time they're 40. Just like I mentioned before, that one post I seen some years ago where some kids were holding up signs, and the sign said, "Don't tell us not to accept candy. Tell grown-ups to stop taking advantage of us," or something like that. Or don't tell us not to talk to strangers. Tell adults to stop hurting us. Something like that. And the stranger danger model is already known to be very false. Typically, you're not going to get hurt by a stranger. It's going to be a family member, and then maybe some other people after that. But you're going to get hurt by the people in your own house before anyone else. Or I guess like that one verse, a man's enemies will be those of his own household. That's what the signs were saying, and the kids were like, Arabic or something. It also goes into something else that somebody has said to me once, where they were like, younger homeless people are more likely to get R-worded because they have less life experience. They weren't taught to watch out for the signs, but also that's just still very victim blaming. So it's like, it's your fault you got R-worded because you have less life experience. It's your fault that somebody came up to you out of nowhere while you were walking to the store and threw you in the back of their car because you have less life experience. I mean, what in the world? It's honestly no different from the whole say no rhetoric and the whole teaching kids to say no and to report. First of all, report what to who for who to do what. Nobody cares. In fact, that's not even the first of all. That's the second of all, I guess. The first of all is the fact that saying no isn't going to stop anything. And also, you can't actually say no to the family or guardians. Once you say no, they press charges on you and you're locked up in a mental facility or something else because you disagreed to be S8 or whatever. But yes, like, people aren't stupid. They're just either doing what they were taught to do and they're just going along with the cycle, or they're just looking for love and they understand that what they're doing is very risky. Like, I've met plenty of people that are like, I mean, yeah, I know that I shouldn't be doing this, but I just fall into the cycle every time I get lonely because I'm neglected and I'm being abused, and I want somebody to talk to me that's older as well. I want someone older to spend time with me and to like take me places. And also I have sex addiction as well, and so that's why I do this. But I know this is risky, and I want to unalive myself anyway. So I don't care if they hurt me. And I don't care if they unalive me. And I already know that it's a possibility, but I don't care because I hate myself anyways. They're not stupid people, and people acting like somebody is stupid keeps the cycle going, and it keeps people from actually addressing the real issues with the family system and the bad coping mechanisms. Or like this one girl who has a TikTok channel, or this one lady, I don't remember the name of it, but I think she has a YouTube too, but I can't remember. But she had mentioned how she sees herself very similar to Nova from Soft White Underbelly. The situations are a little different though, but she talked about how I think she was S.see or she was in foster care or something. Can't really remember. She ended up getting trafficked. When I say lower level, I'm not saying this to like act like the situation isn't still serious. I'm just saying it's not like high level with like, I don't know, the president or some rich person or something. Lower level prostitute. She fell into that at about 14, maybe younger. Some friend dragged her into it. The guys who would do it would be like, you're gonna do this to make some money, but then they would take all their money and they would like prost the girls and tell them that you're gonna go do this and you're gonna go do that and you're gonna give us some money. But the girl said, or the lady said, that in her mind when she was younger, she just thought that she was like making money because she was a quote unquote child. I'm not saying this to act like what happened was it was okay or something. Teenagers are not children. She thought this was okay because she was used to being abused and she's been taught that abuse is normal and that it's okay, and she wasn't taught that this stuff isn't okay. Well, it is normal, but it's definitely not a good thing. A 10-year-old or a 9-year-old who's been taught that these things aren't okay and has been taught that they don't deserve to be abused, well, no, this isn't okay, I'm being abused. Being 14 isn't why she thought that this was okay. She thought this was okay because she was taught to think that this was okay. People aren't stupid because they're 14, like, I mean, when I was 14, somebody was trafficking me because of the research I've done and all that, and because, like, I are blessed enough to know, like, what these things are. I would have known that I was being trafficked. I wouldn't have just thought, oh, I'm just having fun and making money, while getting beat up and slapped and having people rob me and telling me that what I'm supposed to do, that I need to go have sex with people for money. I wouldn't have thought that I was just having fun. She was taught to think that way. But it's still in her adult mind, she still feels like, I just thought this was okay because I was a quote-unquote child. That's not really how that works, to be honest. And typically, even infants are scared to go into the hands of a stranger. And like I meant to mention, but I ended up talking about something else and going on another rant. A rant that led way somewhere else. One time when I was in Cali, I was walking down the street by the shelter, and this one lady saw me and she had burst into tears. I think she might have already been crying, to be honest, but she was like, she started screaming at me and doing the usual projection thing that I mentioned in other videos, and she was like, it's not worth it. It's really not worth it, and even if your parents kicked you out, you know, you gotta beg them to bring you back home and let you come back because it's not worth it. Doing drugs isn't worth it and none of it's worth it. But the thing is, my relatives didn't do drugs and I don't do drugs. It doesn't appeal to me. It's not something that I would do as a coping mechanism. And I know people be like, you're just arrogant and you feel like you're above the bad coping mechanism. It's really just not for me. It's very much a racial thing as well, as I always talk about, with what I like to call the white addict projection. It's very much a racial and cultural thing, which revolves around a lack of hope and faith, and also just being in an area, mostly white area, where you're actually able to do these substances without getting taken to jail. And I still have chronic illness from being forced on a lot of different substances as a part of my Cash for Kids system abuse, so it's really just not for me. And as I always say, this actually goes back to the drug projection thing and the white addict projection. Also just people having no accountability still because they feel like I fell into this because this is just what happens. This is just what people do. And I mean, I'm not even going to lie. I understand like why people fall into it, but I'm just saying that like it's not for everybody. It's not something everybody's really going to fall into. And as far as like the large scale substance use, that is very much a racial thing. I know a lot of melanated people like are alcoholics or like smoke weed, which I mean weed is very, I would say that's honestly the worst drug you can do, but the large scale drug use is very much a racial thing because white people can do it without going to jail or getting charged. And as I always say, they do more drugs statistically, and they've been ODing for years on end. They just see it as something that just happens and is bound to happen. Like, I even remember this one time where this white dude was like, you totally do drugs, and I know you do drugs because it's just what people do. You have to fight the cycles and the mindsets and being dragged into stuff pretty much. When you fight it, you're going to be the person that's told, oh, you just have trust issues, or you're just paranoid and you don't want to be around people. Or maybe even, you think you're better than everybody else. That's what you're going to get told when you avoid the cycles with your whole mind, body, and soul. Then as far as the whole prostitution thing, this is sometimes an accusation from older women who are jealous of you because they think that you look better, or they're just jealous because you're younger. There's also the dudes that are going to accuse you of being a prostitute because they're hoping you are, but mostly women really throw this accusation around to younger girls and to guys. Also in the area I'm in, it's very common for like I mean, this is common everywhere, but especially like in southern places, it's very common for people to be called quote unquote fast and grown, because it's a big, fast and grown is a big insult in the quote unquote black quote unquote community, and also in like southern places. So like you're gonna be made to feel like, since you got R-worded by a relative and now you're pregnant, now you're fast and grown because you're pregnant by your dad or something. So now you get kicked out, and it's a very common thing. So people automatically are going to feel like, oh, girls usually get kicked out for being pregnant, so you're probably pregnant or you were pregnant. I can't even carry a baby, but that's people's assumption. Also the prostitution thing. So the idea that any grown man that's close to me in a 5-mile radius is my baby daddy and I'm pregnant by him and that's why I got kicked out. The idea that if you're younger, you automatically are a prostitute or you sell substances because in people's mind that's the only way that younger people can make money, boy or a girl. It just shows that, like, as I've always said, people really feel like that's the only way younger people can make money. Then why don't people want to help younger people so they don't have to sell substances or sell themselves? But people really don't care. But that's going to be the assumption. People are going to be like, that's the only way you can make money, so you got to be making money that way. But pretty much, mostly women are really going to throw this accusation. It just shows how much people have normalized abuse. But then people are in this whole minor craze where they're pretending that they care about minors or younger people, which is all very stupid because people never care. They didn't care when you were a baby. They don't care now. They're never going to care. You got to care about yourself. And people say that's a sad way to view the world, and you this and you that. Look, if you don't understand this, you're going to be the person with perpetual R-word stories that's always talking about how you're getting R-word every other week. And you're going to be the perpetual victim who refuses to do stuff for yourself and try to find a way to take care of yourself and manage for yourself. So you're always running up in people's houses and in people's cars, maybe even to do substances with them, and so you're always getting R-worded. You're always running around looking for a boyfriend or a girlfriend. I'm not even talking about, like, the accusation you may get, as I've gotten before, about being quote-unquote boy crazy, even though, honestly, I'm never around people my age who really be boy crazy that much. But I will say, though, don't let anybody make you feel bad for having normal emotions, but definitely don't fall into the whole fornication ritual, and don't fall into the cycle of running around feeling like you need somebody to take care of you. And I mean, it is unfortunate because, like, I mean, there's plenty of people that have been homeless by themselves since they were 7. But nobody gives a crap. Nobody's going to take care of you. So they had to sell themselves to make money because, like, there's not really too many other ways, at least in their mind, that a 7-year-old could make money. I would say sell art. People are going to at least, like, maybe give you $1 because they feel bad, or, like, they just think that, I don't know, you're trying to, like, make some money. And never let people know that you're homeless or in a bad situation. But there's definitely other ways. But I would say the biggest thing to do is to try to not need money. Don't be materialistic. Don't think that you, like, need clothes and all that stuff. I mean, I guess maybe you don't want to be walking around naked, but, like, I mean, you just got to focus on real needs like food and shelter. Learn to forage. I don't know, like, you can eat dandelions, but be careful with that. You really gotta, like, I don't know, figure out some other stuff. And people aren't gonna like this, but the thing is, regardless of how young you are, nobody's gonna save you. You gotta save yourself. And that's kind of one of the points I really want people to get. I didn't learn anything else since running. It's that a lot of people aren't really willing to do what it takes to save themselves. They're too scared. They have Stockholm syndrome. They have cognitive dissonance. Or they actually, like, love their family and their abusers. I was lucky enough to where, like, my family system didn't have, like, all the love stuff going on, and, like, you know, there was none of that, so I didn't have to worry about, like, not wanting to leave because, like, I was gonna miss somebody or miss my parents or something. But a lot of people, I guess, they do have that. You gotta be willing to do what it takes. But I'm definitely not making it seem like it's easy or something, because, I mean, most people throughout my life have considered me a Debbie Downer anyway, so, like, I mean, people already know that I'm not really the person to sugarcoat stuff and to make things seem good when they're really not. Not that it's bad either, it's just not easy, but I mean, nothing's ever easy. And we should all already know that by now, from day one, or even really from prenatal stage, if you can remember that far. Going back to something that I said however long ago, where I mentioned how more and more every day, and especially since running, I really get what people mean when they say that they don't want to be around people who, I don't know, are like always unhappy or like have a lot of excuses or have a victim complex. I think I mentioned this, I don't know if I did, but pretty much the thing with like how rich people only hang around other rich people. And I know that most people would honestly consider me one of these bummy people with excuses and a lot of sad, bad stories. Which is why, like, I do understand the mindset for some of the people who say things like this about how, like, they don't like to hang around people who pretty much see as, like, being... But I'll also always see the problems with this. Like, even people that could be doing considerably bad to people who are, like, really high up in the caste system. Even those people who are doing pretty bad can still look at someone like me and they're, of course, gonna, like, try to put me down, because of course for somebody to be up they have to be putting somebody else down. But it's like I still don't really like these sayings and mindsets for a lot of reasons, because overall it does revolve around individualism and people not caring about other people whatsoever. Because I mean, these same sayings are used for people when they're in abuse situations. The 9-year-old who got kidnapped next door, who's in the kidnapper's house, and people will be like, I don't like being around people with a lot of victim stories, when the 9-year-old's talking about how they got kidnapped and they want somebody to help them get home. That's how people are. So like, I still see the issues with these mindsets, but I also can see how these arguments or these, I don't know, mindsets can like be valid sometimes. But I get that most people wouldn't even understand why I'd even want to like agree with any of these things, since most likely going to be one of the people that the people who run around saying things like that will be talking about. But it's like, I don't know though. I think one of the biggest things about it is that I don't really consider myself as being in a bad situation, but definitely society and people and these different demonic agents everywhere make any situation bad, to be honest.